Thanks, Kerry. I don't know if my slides are coming up. There we go, great. Conscious we're towards the end of quite a long day of talks, so respect to you all for your resilience. I think that's representative of us as an industry, really. So yeah, I'm going to rattle through these slides. A lot of it is a kind of update on where we are with Meta. You've had a bit of an introduction from Paul already as to what Meta's about. But before I get into that, can I just have a show of hands to see who here is from technology developers? Okay, great. And the supply chain? Right. Yes. Big cheer from Tim at the back there. And lastly, who of the technology developers and supply chain have been through one of the network of test centers? Okay, so there's a general, I guess, consensus that there's a need for test centers, but I think from a lessons learned point of view, yeah, I think there's a lot more that we can be taking from this, and Paul kind of alluded to that in his talk around the lessons learned piece, and that's kind of where Meta came from, and working closely with MEIS, the Centre of Excellence, in kind of trying to put those pieces of the jigsaw in place in Wales. So the marine energy test area is a concept that has been talked about for a number of years now. There's a series of pre-consented, non-grid connected test areas in the Milford Haven waterway. So it's not intended to be replicating what EMEC or Wave Hub or other test centres, but hopefully complementing them. It's now being led by Marine Energy Wales. Initially, it came from individual technology developers approaching the port and asking to do ad hoc activities in the waterway and asking for support from them. And then it was through Marine Energy Wales' working group. There was a general enthusiasm for having something more formal. So that's kind of where it's come from. We've been lucky to secure funding through WEFO for the project. And as I say, it's part of that kind of those pieces of the jigsaw that we've got in Wales, and I think it's an important piece. So it's suitable for a range of component, sub-assembly and marine tests. So I think when we think of test centres, it's normally about scale devices, but I really feel from past experience working at MCT in particular that, as Paul said earlier, there's a lot that should be being done in parallel, to offshore deployments, and we're hoping that a lot of that can be done in Meta, in the areas that we're consenting and working closely with the port. So that's one of the areas that we see as of Meta being distinct from some of the other test centres is its accessibility, and some of the sites that we've identified very sheltered, and some of that kind of component sub-assembly testing can be done very, very easily and efficiently. So there's been a fair amount of testing that's already been done in the waterway. We've had MPS, Wavetricity, obviously TEL, and a lot of the feedback we've got, we've had from technology developers is that kind of very short-term testing, dip testing, tow testing, has been really useful to them, and there's more things that they would have liked to have been able to do if there was a more formal process for doing it. So Meta's aims is to de-risk full-scale deployments, to provide a showcase for innovation, add value to the UK test centre network, and support the enterprise zone initiatives. So these slides I'll really rattle through. So we've defined our site now. It's taken a while, and the goalposts have shifted a fair amount over the last year and a half. But we've defined the site. We've got a project design envelope finalized that is intended to ensure that when developers come to use Meta, they don't have to be doing any of the consenting work. So it's flexible enough for them to come on board, demonstrate that what they're looking to do falls within that envelope, and hopefully we can get people in the water very quickly. We've had a lot of good input from CCAMS, and we've recently deployed Wave Buoys in two of our sites, East Pickard and Dale Roads. And both of them, the intention being long-term deployments of those Wave Buoys. So you're not really going to be able to see too much from this image, apart from the fact that what we've defined is two phases. Phase one being a number of sites around the port infrastructure, specifically to cater for people lowering stuff off the quays there, people getting their devices fabricated and wanting to do that kind of dip testing or component testing. And then wider than that, our phase two is three real sea environment test sites. The two towards the mouth of the waterway are wave sites, and one the other side of the bridge is a tidal site with I say reasonable currents, enough to do testing. So we've spent a lot of time having to go through the whole procurement process, which is a necessity with WEFO funding. But we've now got what we see as a very strong support team in place. I guess I was going to say the important one from that list, that strategic advice from the perspective of this session, we were very keen not to repeat any mistakes and really take advantage of all those lessons learned from other test centres. So we contracted both EMEC and WaveHub, and we really feel we've benefited from all those years of experience from those teams. But also from the other guys that we've procured on that list, RPS, Burgess Salmon, and Partrack. They'll all be familiar names to you guys and a whole wealth of experience there. So I guess the main lessons that we were looking to learn there, just make use of the experience that's out there. There's a lot of people that have been involved in the sector for a long time now, and a lot of very useful information in people's heads. Oh, and then on the insurance side, renewable risk advisors. So stakeholder engagement. So Marine Energy Wales is run by Pembrokeshire Coastal Forum, and that's Pembrokeshire Coastal Forum's bag, really. So we've gone to town on the stakeholder engagement side of things. I think it was important for us to make sure we got hearts and minds involved in this project, as Andy Middleton was stressing to us earlier. And after being worried about people's reaction to what we were looking to do, particularly in a site next to Fresh West, we've been pleasantly surprised that the local communities have been very, very behind what we're looking to do. Consenting and leasing. I know a lot of the lessons learnt that we've been talking about are on the technology side. As a project developer by background, a lot of the challenges are around the consenting. I don't think consenting a test center is necessarily standard. There are lessons that we've taken away from the process so far. But I think with any consenting, there's challenges, and this being a complex project, it's presented a number. But we're getting there. I guess one of the main messages we wanted to put out today was we've got the phase 1 license applications in, and we're expecting them in June of this year. So we're pleased to say we're open for business. We really want to be talking to people now about starting to put stuff in late summer. Phase 2, we submitted the scoping in end of last year. And we're really pushing to get the license application in soon on that, and hopefully have Bombora in the water as planned early next year. So key activities moving forward, so securing those consents, finalizing the commercial agreements and the operational procedures, and we will be relying quite heavily on input from particularly EMEC on that. Signing berth agreements, hopefully, with the whole horde of technology developers knocking on our door to use Meta. And developing that relationship with Meese. We really see that as key for Meta, and it really Meta really being a resource for Meese to use as a focus for really hopefully pushing the industry forward. So that's the last slide from me. We're open for business. Come and talk to us. Thank you.